All right, everybody, this is Sheets, and I'm going to be going over the Survivor strategy for week 5 and beyond. I imagine, I hope that people have been watching from the beginning, because I'm going to start to not go over everything that's important. Each week I've gone over just kind of the basics. And I guess I'm going to continue to do that. Again, for Survivor pools, there are 2 considerations. And as you'll see from this week, one consideration starts to become a little more important than the other. The first consideration is the immediate EV of your play, which is the combination of the team's winning chances plus, not plus, but as a function of their popularity. You have 2 teams with equal winning chances, but one of them are going to be owned by 70% of the pool, then, excuse me, I just need this today. Then you're going to want to take the lower owned team because that's where your EV is going to lie. The other component is future value. You know, you want to take teams now that you're not going to want to use in the future. The idea being that you're not just trying to win week to week, you're trying to win the whole pool. And it happens every year. People just try to survive. And by the time you get to week 10, they wonder why they have no options left. That's just only a 3-point favorite. And that's because they didn't plan out in advance. Now, the other thing is that, as I mentioned earlier, with respect to, well, decent amount this year, but, you know, because of COVID, but usually the amount that you weight the immediate EV of a play versus future value of a play, it kind of changes over the course of the year. Like at the very beginning of the year, it's more important to focus on the immediate EV because, again, you know pretty much what the winning chance of the teams are based on Vegas odds. And the popularity gauges that are available to you, like on this site that I have right here, are usually pretty tight. So the immediate EV, which they do for you over here, is usually pretty close. So there's not a lot of variance with respect to how correct you are with what the immediate EV is. But the future value of your teams and the considerations of future value have quite a bit of variance at the beginning of the year because, let's face it, there's 17 weeks left. So the further out into the future that you need to project, the more variance there is with that. Now, as you get further along in the season, though, the future value becomes kind of really important. And this is kind of what I'm getting at here. Already in week 5, what I'm going to be looking at is planning for the future and me being able to get great EV plays in the future. And this is kind of what I'm getting at. So last week, we faded the Rams, as you might recall. The Rams were about 55% owned, and they were just kind of an okay EV play. One of the reasons we faded them is I saw out in the future that they were going to be a really good play in week 15, okay? And the idea is this: if 55% of the people are going to be taking them now, even if they don't lose, what ends up happening is all those people are not going to have the Rams available left. So when you get to week 15, right, if you were able to fade the Rams last week, you're going to have incredible leverage, okay? Because it's possible that some of them won't have Baltimore left. You know what I mean? So it's really important to make these considerations and to make do this analysis well in advance. So while it didn't seem as though we picked up any ground last week, because let's face it, by the way, the Rams, they almost lost. So we could have just buried like more than half the pool last week anyway. But even so, even though they won, we pick up all kinds of action because now we have the Rams where no one else does. So like, we're going to get to this week, for example. This week, you'll see automatically that the Rams, even though they have 75% winning chances, they're only going to be about 5% owned. And the reason for that, partially, is that half the pools used them already last week. So the amount of love they would normally have is just eliminated by scarcity. So already you can see that you can get a big 76% favorite at only 5% ownership. Now, there might be better plays, but you see if you project all the way out in the future, right, then the Rams out in week 15 are going to have just incredible EV because they're going to be a big favorite over the Jets, okay? And no one's going to have them because of all the people that didn't take them last week, some of them are going to take them this week. So these are the things you think about when you map and you plan out in the future. So let's go over it. By the way, we did go ahead and do what I said, but we took Tampa last week. That was our main play. We could have taken Tampa. We could have taken San Francisco. Those were both decent plays. But we did take Tampa. A little sketchy for the first half, but we overcame all of it. We won. And again, we had a shot to take out a whole carload of people a whole football field full of people with when the Rams were struggling against the Giants, but that didn't work. But again, we picked up kind of hidden EV in the future. All right, so what do we got this week? Let's first just rank these teams by immediate EV. And you see the top guys are clearly Kansas City and Baltimore. And they're just such big favorites every week, it seems, that they're going to have some good EV every week. You'll see that the most popular team of all is Dallas, all right? And part of the reason for that is that Dallas really, you can't really use them at all until after that, until maybe week 12. Which is, by the way, where we're going to probably end up using. But and that's why even though they have, 79% winning chances, their immediate EV is only 0.95, and that's because they're 26% owned. Okay, see how this works? On the other hand, Kansas City and Baltimore, they have incredibly high EV because they have like infinite winning percent chance, and while they're owned, it's not as much as Dallas. So if you're only looking at immediate EV, Kansas City and Baltimore would be the plays, okay? But the problem is they have such high future value that they're probably not the greatest plays in the world because you're going to really want to use those in the future, okay? So let's look at some of these others. So New Orleans, the Rams, San Francisco, New England, all of these teams are very close with respect to immediate EV. So now we have to just see about future value. Now, again, just on a pure basis, San Francisco is a really good play because they have very, very little future value. You could make the case that you won't be able to use them or shouldn't use them all the way until week 14. So San Francisco is definitely in play. I got to pause this for just a second. Sorry about that. Hope I remember where I was. So, okay, so San Francisco, they're definitely in play. Also teams in play, New Orleans, they have good EV, kind of lowest on the low side of future value. We're probably going to use them a little later, so probably not going to use them. The Rams, as I mentioned before, if you were smart and faded the Rams, they become a very viable option this week because, again, they have good immediate EV. And you really can't use them again. I mean, you could, but it's probably not a great idea to use them until maybe week, 15, right? So the Rams are pretty solid. Week 7, you might be able to use them too. So the Rams are a solid play. So if you go down a little bit, New England, obviously New England's got a lot of variance because of the quarterback situation, but that's all factored into the price, which is very volatile, by the way. So you want to make sure that this immediate EV thing kind of holds and watch it kind of like move around a little bit. So they're kind of okay if you didn't burn them already, right? If you followed my advice, you would have already played New England a couple of weeks ago. So if you do have New England available, they're certainly in play. So I'm just going to show you what I'm going to do. Now, it depends on your pool, right? I mean, I'm in a particular pool that has double picks a little later on in the slate, so to speak. So maybe like week 10, week 11, they go to double picks, which makes things really difficult. So in pools like that, you really need to emphasize future value. You need to save teams as much as possible and take risks early. And in pools like that, and even in some single picks, and I'm probably going to do this, you can go all the way down to Houston. All right. Now, this is going to seem a little fishy, right? Because even from an immediate EV perspective, they're like, what, 10th on the list, maybe? But their lack of future value is so huge, okay? I mean, if you look through this, you are never going to play them, okay? So Houston is a very, now, again, it's a very aggressive play, and you got to be willing to accept that. You're getting variance. But if, in fact, you've been playing the plays that I've been recommending, you've been playing teams that are not going to be that highly used anyway going forward. So you want to keep making that, building that strong entry for the future to give yourself some leverage. So I think Houston is a very, very strong leveragey type play in survivor pools. Certainly, if you have multiple entries, it would be criminal to not play at least some of them, okay? Some Houstons. Now, again, it's scary. I mean, new coach, new whatever, they 0-3. I mean, they're terrible. I mean, it seems, but you know, you gotta bite the bullet. You got to accept the 71% winning chances and take a shot. So for me, I'm going to try that. Arizona, I use them. So if you have Arizona available, maybe Arizona is a similarly aggressive play, but I got other plans for them. Like Arizona, I might use them in week 9 up over here, but we'll see about that. Dallas, again, we already talked about this. We're going to use them in week 12. We don't need this. This is the way you think about it. Seattle, no way. I'm going to use them in weeks 13, 14, 15, around there. Pittsburgh, they're kind of okay, but I got other plans for them. You know, I want to use them in 13 when it's going to be a little harder, or maybe week 10 or something like that. So what I would do, again, is it depends on who you've picked in the past, but San Francisco and New Orleans, they're both fine. Rams are fine. And then if you want to get really aggro, you can go play Houston. Okay. You don't want to play Kansas City. You don't want to play Baltimore. They're both going to win. Okay. But it's just not that easy. That's not really what you want to do. And you don't want to play Dallas. You just don't want to. Low EV. You know, I mean, they're okay in the respect they can only play them in one other week. But as you'll see, when you get to week 12, you're really going to want Dallas. You're really just going to want them. So, I would not play them. So that's it. Hope this wasn't too confusing, but that's the, you know, I have to tell you, when I do Survivor stuff, you know, my partner in this, and maybe I'll have him on there one day, we don't speak like 7 months out of the year, 8 months out of the year. And then during Survivor pool season, we have like probably 8 texts a day going through to one another. And that's the work you got to put into this stuff, and continuing to plan and continuing to plot and continuing to connive. That's it. Good luck.